Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on, Southwest Florida? Today, I got a short little nugget of information I wanted to give to you on reflux and stomach acid. So if you go to the good old Google and type in what causes stomach acid, which I just did, or reflux or heartburn, certain food and drinks such as coffee, tomatoes, alcohol, chocolate, and fatty or spicy foods, being overweight, smoking, pregnancy. So first of all, what doesn't being overweight and smoking cause? But there may be a different reason for your reflux. So I'm not saying that these things aren't true. Like sometimes if I have too much coffee, I'll get a little reflux too. But the theory here is that, these foods may be too acidic or cause an increase in acid, and somehow that sloshes its way back up into your esophagus. So you get your esophagus, then you have a sphincter called your lower esophageal sphincter, and then your stomach. So sometimes that thing can open up inappropriately. I'll call it the LES for short because it's a mouthful. So what causes the LES to open? There's a lot of research showing that an increase in abdominal pressure, and that hence the being overweight or pregnant, can cause that valve to inappropriately open. So some of the newer thinking, some of the newer research is coming out saying that really the cause is probably lower stomach acid. So as we age, we stop producing as much stomach acid. And I'm talking about HCl, hydrochloric acid. You can get a test for this and see if you're low in stomach acid. And certain lifestyle things like diet, probably the smoking thing, can reduce the action of the parietal cells, the ones that produce the stomach acid. So stomach acid is kind of a first line of defense when you ingest food. And it's important. You need it to break down food and absorb the nutrients from the food. It also breaks down some of the bacteria that you ingest that's common in the food. So what can happen is if you have low stomach acid, the food is not properly broken down, and then it's allowed to sit in your gut and ferment. Now, fermentation is a process, and this is like how you make beer, wine, alcohol. You take glucose, sugar, and you expose it to a yeast or a bacteria, and then it produces, in this example, alcohol and CO2, so carbon dioxide gas. So fermentation always will produce gas. In fact, here's a fun little tidbit. So if you want to tell the difference between a good sparkling wine and a cheap one, you can tell by the bubbles. If you have one that's made with the natural fermentation process, you've got those small line of bubbles that come from the bottom of the glass. If you have the thicker, bigger bubbles that stick to the side of the glass, that's because that fermentation process is complicated. They actually go through a double fermentation. So sometimes the cheaper sparkling wines will skip the sort of labor-intensive process, and they'll just inject some CO2 at the end. So that's how you can tell between the cheapy and the good stuff. Anyways, I used to be a bartender in former life. So the same process can happen in the gut, where you have some food, it sits in the gut, maybe because it hasn't been properly absorbed or digested or broken down by the stomach acid, and then fermentation happens, and then you get an increase in gases in the gut. All right. Now that will increase your intra-abdominal pressure, and that in turn will cause the LES to open up. And it doesn't matter like the volume, any amount of acid in the esophagus is going to cause reflux. So one of the suggestions may be, if this is you, and you probably should get tested for this, and obviously do this with a physician, but some people benefit from taking digestive enzymes. So that's basically hydrochloric acid. I know I've had some reflux in the past, and I've taken these supplements myself and greatly reduced my reflux. So this is something that you shouldn't just toy around with. You should definitely get it checked. Test, don't guess. But maybe taking acid is what you need to reduce your reflux. So I know some of you are thinking, well, what about these antacids and PPIs like omeprazole? Those might be good for short-term relief. So think of solving this problem in two different ways, short-term, long-term. These, like antacids, they're only approved for short-term use. But, the thing is with over-the-counter type stuff, a lot of people sort of assume that it's totally safe to take as much as you want, and it's not that strong, and that's not really true, actually. So they're only intended for short-term use. So if you're constantly popping antacids, what you're doing is maybe exacerbating a problem. Because if you already have a low stomach acid issue, and you just keep suppressing more acid, well, you can see where the problem is. So rather than eating like that slice of pizza that you want and popping an antacid, maybe skip the foods that trigger the acid production in the first place. That way you can get off the antacids and maybe normalize your stomach acid production. If that doesn't work, then you might need an actual intervention with a healthcare practitioner. Anyways, that's all I have for you this week. I'll be talking to you guys soon. Why guess when you can test? Do you get hangry or crash after a carb-heavy meal? These could be indicators that there is a dysfunction in your blood glucose regulation. If left unchecked, it can lead to irreversible changes. If you catch it quick enough, you can make diet and lifestyle changes that will get your levels where they need to be. 88% of Americans are pre-diabetic and don't know it. Diabetes underpins many of the pathologies we deal with in this country, such as obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. For some reason, it is rarely screened with your physician, and if they do test for blood glucose, it's usually with an A1C or a fasting glucose, which can sometimes give you a false negative. NutriSense is a company that supplies continuous glucose monitors. We've paired with NutriSense to get you real-time data to see how your physiology responds to glucose. The NutriSense app lets you track your daily activity to see how food, sleep, exercise, and stress impact your glucose. You can log or import this data into the NutriSense app to see the effect on your blood glucose levels as soon as it happens. Use the code DrChris25 for $25 off your order today. Do you have unexplained pain, or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great tool to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's thyroid function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It is sent to you with free shipping, and you get your results in 2 to 5 days. No physician referral needed. Use the code DPT25 for 25% off. You can find links in the show notes. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.